Hardcore, that was a good one.
And then it makes sense with if there was one moment in time where people would be going out, they always say like they're in the tunnel and they see the light going out. But what if that was circumnavigated, where there was one moment like out of all time that it was just like the light was going on to the land? And then DNA is so great because it's non-biased, and by default it's inside of you. It makes decisions because like you're one with it, because your identity is it. If anywhere there was a camera, what if you was able to get internet off of its lens? That means anytime you saw a cop, they have to wear a camera on their stomach, where you can get internet off them. Just like in the Bible, when the rivers flow out of the stomach, that could be like a policeman. When you see him, he gives you the internet plate to put my phone somewhere. And I would ask the librarian to help me, but she doesn't like me. She just kicked me out. I just got kicked out of a library from a librarian because my face wasn't covered. You know, it's ironic just because I knew what I was walking into. As I was entering the door, two little boys told me, hey, you know, you've got to wear a mask. And I told them my face, and I said it's epidermis. Said that or not, but the irony is that I was serious when I was saying that, because it actually is. Because if you get burned bad enough, your face's epidermis would become thicker, almost thicker than an N95 mask. So a coroner's job isn't to tell someone the danger of doing something, because the decision he makes of how they've come to him at the coroner is from them making a decision that led to them being there in the first place. Wrong to say that that's what they have said for so many years that all of a sudden it becomes normal practice for them just to say it, and that's why it's been recorded as a statistic. I don't know, and I don't think anyone ever will, except for the coroners, and I wish to never talk to one, especially about something like that. My fascination with food is if a fruit tastes as good as it did in the past. There was a person who said that there was like this mango, and mangoes don't taste the same as they did in the past. They theorize that's because the earth is being choked. I don't know, we'd have to search to find out what could be in the soil and splitting from decomposing a bad split. You know, at what point was a person under the understanding, who had an understanding, at what point was a person have an understanding that they had been diagnosed with multiple personalities? And one individual came to an understanding that they had multiple personalities. How did that diagnosis come into play? And at what moment was that? It seemed that time stopped the moment they found out they had multiple personalities, or did they feel as time split into each of them, gaining their own identity within their own embodiment? So as far as they're giving reason to believe that such events could occur, the opposite is just as likely, especially if someone's freaked out enough to mention it. You know, it's hard to know if such events even did occur, especially since if they were prescribed in the reflections or a growth within the constituent, it would only be the person enacting the action that would be involved in seeing, because it would be so quick as a split second. And in that duration, it's something as equal as to saying, you know, God created everything in 7 days, where it doesn't really matter if he created everything in 1 second, because no one was there to see it happen. He could have created it in half of a second. It just doesn't matter. Or a pumpkin that grows big enough into a carriage. You know, like with Ant-Man, how can he grow so big in a minute body, in a drop of a dime, explode up to 14 feet? But if it did happen, what would be the electron interplay that would allow for it to be almost accurate but entirely off? It'll have like characteristics of eyes being darker, skin being paler, or it'll start moving in the opposite motion of the person that it's being reflected of. You say this would never happen. That's just a camera trick if it did. You know how a Roman candle explodes? You know, I want to talk about things like that, and I know that it's really dangerous, but as long as it's for sale, it can't be that bad. So the math behind the Roman candle exploding, do you know how electrons allow mirrors to work? Do you know how electrons would allow an apple to be formed? And what makes a good egg from a bad egg or a rotten egg? 3 degrees. And then if light shone on the earth and all the ghosts were real for one time, and it burned everyone who was bad, because the default position of ghosts is to trick you that they were once a person that living, but that was just a trick the one day that they burned everyone who saw the light, because the light was just the ghost if they didn't rapture. The DNA, she said that there's like a body inside your DNA that's perfect, and it's kind of like a wheel inside of a wheel, but it was before you rapture. When you rapture, that's like your perfect body. And some people don't rapture because they don't find the light in their life. But if you do, and then you would rapture, and that's like your perfect body without anything bad happening to it. And I thought, yeah, you know, well, that makes sense if you're always like growing, and then even if you're not growing physically, it's like your brain is active and it's going and it's cranking something. And if anything, it's cranking the medium in your DNA spiral because the electric chemical reactions are firing off, and those probably use it as its medium. So I was signed on to the rapture of your perfect self is inside of there. All right, yeah. And then she says the creator pulls it out when you get the moment of rapture that you're wanting. Your physicality would actually come out and endure your perfect self. And you can take that however you want. I took it literal. And the third thing I took only because I would think that everyone is striving for the purpose in life. And if you find that this is what she was kind of aiming at, and I only understood it because I asked, what am I worst at as a person? Because she's known me a little bit better than my friend. My only friend is the only person I put myself out there for. And I'm thinking it's only because he's black, so I give him slack when he is the person that would treat me worse than most people would. But I've known him for so long, and I give him some slack because he's black. So at the end of my life, I could say, you know what? He did matter. But no, his sister said, I'm shy and then I overthink. So it's kind of like a sick joke that I'm recording myself like every day talking outside in public. I don't like talking inside of a house recording myself because I see people doing that and I think that they're shy. So I'm trying to like prove to myself as like a sick joke where I only will like speak to myself if I'm holding a camera walking out in public. It's kind of funny, but I like to, kill two birds with one stone.